Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association serving companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI's Brand Response Council. These 20-minute live conversations featuring leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry are scheduled twice monthly. Before we get to today's conversation, a housekeeping note. We'll be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of the session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the episode. Today's episode, introducing the Back To series, kicks off a series of episodes that will take us through the end of the year. And the idea behind this series has changed a little bit over the last couple months since we came up with it, obviously, thanks to the continuing saga of the ups and downs of the pandemic. However, we're gonna keep pushing right ahead, and we'll talk about now here today some of the topics that we'll be kicking around over the next few months. We'll talk about how the promise of the Roaring '20s may eventually come to fruition. Before that happens, brands, agencies, and media companies have to recalibrate in a new post-COVID normal. Post-COVID, we hope. This episode brings these members of the Brand Response Council together to share the lessons they've learned, what kinds of opportunities have revealed themselves, what are some unexpected threats that still loom. As we get back to school, to work in office, to events and more, let's set the table for those coming conversations with these professionals who are living with and working through the changes. We're excited to welcome Doug Bogner of Apex Media, Ron Hadler of Red Door Interactive, Kevin Hayes of American Target Network, and Mark Sullivan of Viacom CBS to the virtual stage. And to guide them through the conversation, as always, we have Brand Response Council Chair Chris Foster of Modern Postcard. Gentlemen, take it away.
Greetings. Well, welcome in. Thank you, Thomas, and welcome in everyone to this Take 20. Like Tom said, when we drafted the structure for our Back To series, this was back in April, May, right? We were looking at the back half of the year for the content. And the concept was, now that this is going to be moving forward, what does it look like going back to these various parts of the industry? What does it look like going back to school, right? And all the industry that surrounds back to school. What does it look like going back to the office? And what does that dynamic shake out within the professional environment? What does it look like going back to events, right? How are events going to change? What does it look like going back to travel and restaurants? How are those market forces and industries now surging and adjusting? And what does it look like going back to agencies and media? So we'll dive into those things. But what's interesting about it is when we first constructed the concept, what we thought it was going to be like is very different than what it is now. And as we were talking about it, we could even almost say, well, the Back To series is back to uncertainty a bit. Because while we know that Hawaii was a major destination over the last month or so for tourism, we also know that there might be some vaccination restrictions or not restrictions on who gets to be in restaurants based on your vaccination in New York City, and Kevin can talk about that. So it might be regional, right? You might have events that are ready to go in sunny San Diego, where you have events maybe in Florida that are going to be postponed or pushed off. So it's a Back To series, not like we thought it was going to be, but it's a Back To series that still is worthy of consideration because we know it's not what it was a year or so ago, but we know that it's not where we thought it was going to be. So anyway, with that, we're so excited to jump on in. And I do have a question that we're going to roll into all of our panelists. And the first question, we're going to just go around the horn on this. And Doug, I'm going to start with you and then go around.
Okay.
So Doug, my question for you is, what do you see being the single biggest pivot happening with consumer behavior?
Convenience. Consumers demand convenience. During the pandemic, so many strategies, so many changes were made to the transactional business, all in an effort to drive a convenient delivery and experience for the consumer. And that is absolutely expected now. Companies that can't deliver in 2 days, like Amazon, that don't have curbside pickup, like everyone out there, are going to be disadvantaged. And I think here's the ancillary to that as well, Chris. that is seriously affecting brand loyalty. People are moving away from brands that do not offer that. And I'll take it a step further, brands that don't offer to that consumer the safety of the transaction, as well as an emphasis on the social and environmental impacts of their business. So there's a deep, deep connection that's been, I don't want to say severed, but realigned in the mind of the consumer.
Brilliant. I love it. I want to get back to it a little bit more. Ron,
I don't have any more. That's it.
Ron, what do you think is the single biggest pivot in consumer behavior?
Yeah, I was going to mention things very similar to Doug there in regards to, convenience is driving that. And a lot of what big brands or iconic brands have depended upon is brand loyalty. And that has kind of gone out the window because of things like convenience. And so it's if you and I can't deliver, you can't get there when it's wanted, it's not available, it's not online, then yeah, the folks are going to switch to new brands. Now the folks that are switching to those brands definitely skew younger. Your older folks are definitely still loyal to those brands, but it's definitely skewing younger. And the other thing that's impacting there is just really kind of your millennials, your Y generation also is just your values. It used to be your products were the most important thing, but now your brand should stand behind great values. They're not just judging you on your product, but just who you are as a company and what you're doing. So it's really keeping convenience over brand loyalty, you might say. But yeah, it's kind of and our younger iPhone generation is just driving all of those.
Awesome. All right, Mark, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, to play off Doug and Ron there, just and the way Ron ended that, iPhone generation and younger, agree 100% agree with convenience. The rise in delivery, food delivery apps over the past year and a half has been astronomical. And the fitness category, yes, people are going back to the gym, right? But the number of people who are working out at home will probably never go down and only go up. And if you look at those numbers pre-COVID to now, again, it has to be the at-home fitness products have just they're only going to go up. And they, from an advertising perspective, they hit it out of the park. And so does these delivery apps as well. I'll just take those two categories, hit it out of the park. You couldn't really change the channel or the app if you're streaming that you weren't seeing these advertisements. But I think I'll bring her to Ron one more time on the iPhone generation. And I think Tim Cook said this maybe 2015, 2016. Our television screen, the TV glass, is going to be app-based in the future. He said that I think 4 or 5 years ago, and he was right on. I'll just give you an example. I'm a Yankee fan, and we have Verizon at home, and our Yes network is glitching out on Verizon. It was going in and out, whatever. I was watching the game the other night with my boys, and I could call Verizon and stay on the phone for an hour and see if they can fix it, maybe. Or I could just go to the Yes app, type in my Verizon information, and now I'm watching the game on, now, which is what we did. So I think which again, I'm not saying anything that's earth-shattering here, but the amount of streaming streaming hours by viewers over the past year and a half is again also just gone through the roof. So we've had a summer here where it seems like we're heading back to some uncertainty, Chris, and maybe I'm answering a couple of questions at once, but I think that summer is ending, right? We're going to be back to school here, some sort of back to the office, some hybrid, whatever it may be, and there'll be even more people at home streaming and watching TV. And maybe I think I saw it this morning on CNBC that the number of people flying has gone down
right
in August versus the last 2 months, obviously with what's going on in the last few weeks. So there'll be some categories that will maybe drop off spend based on what's going on regionally or globally, and there'll be other categories that will then come back and increase their spend in the next rest of the quarter here that maybe had pulled back a little bit. So at the end of the day, I think it kind of all evens out, and there will be again, some categories that amp it up, some categories that pull it back based on the ever-changing. I think John Yarrington said this, every 2 weeks it seems like it's a different thing going on. So anyway, I think I answered a few questions at once there, but
that's all right. No, I loved it.
Yeah.
The thread was consistent, so that was excellent. Kevin, I'm going to wrap up the first question with you. Where do you see the biggest pivot happening with consumer behavior?
Well, I mean, I think it's in the work environment. That's kind of loosely consumer, just because of the way that it impacts, office space, the way that people interact, whether people are traveling or not. I think it's going to be, for a lot of companies, some sort of hybrid. I think the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, going to an office or going to a corporate center that's in a big city like New York or LA, I think those days are over. I think the work consumer is looking for that flexibility, and once they've had that, it's going to be hard to put that back into the bottle again.
Interesting. All right, so here are some key So here are some key words that I pulled out from what everybody said: convenience, flexibility, values, app-based. And I get to go, so I'm gonna throw one out there too. If I'm gonna crystallize into one word, I think it's choice. And what happens now, I believe, is this beautiful interdependency between the customers wanting choice and brands through technologies being able to offer choice, right? So Mark, you said it with the app, right? Before, in the Wayback Machine, if the television was glitchy, Yankees fans everywhere, with the exception of the ones in the stadium, would be like, not anymore. Yes is like, we got you covered, we're fine. So the idea of choice, and that a brand can give choice, but also that customers are demanding choice, is a nice interdependency. So you've got convenience, choice, flexibility, values, all that wraps into what even Kevin was talking about with work choice and being a work hybrid environment. So I think that that's actually going to be the biggest change, and I don't think that that's going to go away. I think that customers and work folks and even businesses will all have to lean in to this alignment of choice, flexibility, convenience, and values. So anyway, so I'd like to move on to a couple specific topics. Kevin, I'm going to start with you because you had some insights based on some survey data regarding a restaurant and travel. What are you seeing when we start going a little bit of back to school? And of course, we're going to have an entire episode on this as a deep dive, but just from a high level headline perspective, what do you see as kind of that back to moment with restaurant and travel?
Well, so we have a couple of stats from MMGY, which is a leading PR firm that works in the travel and hospitality business. So based on their surveys, 57% of travelers indicated that they were going to take a road trip in the next 12 months. 76% said that they intend to do it in the next 12 months. So some of the way that people are traveling, more of a road trip versus going on airplanes. European travelers started to open up to the continent with an emphasis on those that are already vaccinated. The remote travel continues to be popular. So Airbnb nearly doubled the number of bookings in June 2021 versus 2019. They did that comparison to 2019 because obviously 2020 would not be a good comparison. So travel is back, but it's being modified, right? People are doing more road trips. People are going to more Airbnbs. People are going to more experiences, which I think was happening kind of before. So I think it's kind of to be seen how it's all going to play itself out, especially as the Delta started to raise its ugly head a little bit and affected some of those travel plans that people have.
Yeah. Well, I think that what I see also too, a big question is coming up with the big Thanksgiving and Christmas travel, right? So last year, clearly there was very little to no travel happening. I'm really curious as to how this is going to change. And again, it might be something we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast where it's regional. And I think, Kevin, it gets back to what you were talking about with road trips, right? The road trip travel for Thanksgiving is a regional travel, right? That's an easy thing to do. So it might be that these trends start aligning, especially for the upcoming Thanksgiving season. So I'd like to go around a little bit. Mark, you had talked before on some other broadcasts, and you work for a major national brand, about the change of dynamics with work to office. From a big headline perspective, what do you see as the back to when it comes to office dynamics and working, the new working world?
It seems, I'm going to bring up that word uncertainty again. It seems like uncertainty has crept back in to my answer. If you'd asked me that a month ago, I probably would have had a slightly different answer. But for us, we're pushed. Our back to a work hybrid schedule is pushed back to October, middle of October from middle of September. I think that is, I don't want to say in question. I don't think anybody really knows. I think we're taking it day to day. We're right at the moment, though. We are voluntary. You can go in voluntarily, and Viacom CBS has done a great job setting up, making it easy, set up a portal. It's voluntary, but you have to be vaccinated to go into the office, and you have to wear a mask the entire time now that you're in the office. And full disclosure, I have not gone back in yet, but I do plan on going in the next couple of weeks. But yes, I don't really know. I think the answer has changed in the last month, and I don't know what that's going to look like in October. I think a lot for myself. I have three children at high school and one middle school, one elementary school. So a big thing is, are they going to be back in school?
Almost really quiet for you, right? It's a really quiet.
I don't know what this. Yes, I don't. If our school hasn't decided if they're going to test before we go back to. I don't think they are going to test, and based on these numbers nationwide, it doesn't. I'm not that enthusiastic about getting 100% zero cases when you test at a school of a few hundred kids. So I don't. That's why I'm being very cautious and hesitant as to what's going to happen here, because it really does depend a lot on back to school, at least in my.
And that's such an interesting. I think that's a really interesting idea, Mark, where you think about it from a work perspective, where you say back to the office, but back to the office is so interdependent upon back to school. It just has to be, right? And so I think that what I've done some, reading about CEOs and the like, and a lot of CEOs want their people back. A lot of CEOs don't believe in the work remote world. However, a lot of CEOs really believe in the work remote world, and they think that it's actually great for employees. I think, Ron, you had mentioned before that one of the challenges is employee retention, because employees might not have a culture of people that they want to go back to every day. And so it makes them, the ties that bind them to the businesses might not be as strong. At the flip side, though, offering flexibility for someone to come in the office or not come in the office is a draw for a lot of people. What I do think, though, is that there's, to your point, Mark, the uncertainty is so great now. There's no back to work the way it was. I think that the phrase, Doug, you had mentioned earlier, is the genie's out of the bottle. I also think the genie's out of the bottle with working remotely and hybrid options. I think that's the world that we're living in. So Ron and Doug, I'd like you guys to wrap it up. Ron, I'll start with you, and then Doug will go with you. Ron, quick headline for agencies. What's back to agency work looking like over the next year?
Yeah, I know everyone wants to party like it's 2019, but we keep talking about the genie's out of the bottle, and even the Fed's coming in. Like the economy has fundamentally changed, right? You really distilled it very well when you said choice, because there was not a choice to permanently really work from home for a lot of folks. But we had this event, and some astronomical number, like 70% of the workforce switched to an at-home environment, and we realized we can get this done. So we have fundamentally changed. And every one of us said the word hybrid, right? So that moving forward, life is going to be hybrid. It's going to be in person. It's going to be virtual. So, having that choice of how you want to engage is what's going on. Like we always at Red Door had a flexibility to how we wanted to do that. We could work at home a little bit, and we could come to the office. We could be flexible in how we did that. But now it's hybrid. We have a lot of folks that are now moved to permanent telecommuting. They are working from home permanently. So that choice, that hybrid type of environment is kind of what's going on. I said, I think, also talking about what's kind of the threat in the future. And, I think a lot of folks are experiencing this is what's being referred to as the Great Resignation. And really what that's doing is starting to hollow out companies of kind of that middle tier of talent. So you've got, your middle folks kind of being hollowed out and getting hired away, where you have your very top end folks and your bottom folks, but your middle tier is kind of being hollowed out. I think that's a threat that we're all kind of experiencing, and it is coming at us.
Wow. That's really powerful insight, especially as you start aligning your business moving forward. All right, Doug, we're going to wrap it up with you. What's back to media look like?
Oh, good question. The media business still is in a little bit of a period of chaos. I think we'd all agree, given the speed at which the adoption of streaming has increased thanks to COVID. We're seeing some leveling off and the losses suffered by our friends in the traditional or heritage pay TV environment. But still, there was some new research that came out that said people are stacking up services now. Over 8 services is the average that are being stacked up for each consumer. I think we're going to continue to see fallout in that space as it matures. We'll see consolidation. We'll see some services fail. It's interesting to me that in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have seen at least the consumer or the customer interface for Amazon Prime, for Vizio, turn to an environment that looks very, very much like traditional cable TV. You hit a button, you turn it on, you get a program guide. They're doing everything they can to take those 78 million people who still have a heritage pay TV subscription and make it very, very unthreatening to move to a streaming service.
That's brilliant. That's a great insight. Because they already have the streamers, they need the cablers.
They need them. They need them. You absolutely have to have them. Charter's starting to do deals with different subscription services so they can run through their set-top box. You've heard me say this before. The power of the television manufacturers themselves is extraordinary. They're just starting to realize that and harness it. I think that'll be a huge, huge area of growth. The upfronts were amazing in terms of the amount of money that was driven to the OTT services. So what was the question? What's media going to be like? It's going to be crazy, like it always is.
That's awesome. Well, guys, we are at 11:24. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Thomas, do you have any coming up?
Yeah, I've got a couple of good ones here. Convenience and assurance of safety was a big topic early on. Question came in right off the bat. What about seniors and the market 55 and older? Are those two things big concerns for that market, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, when I first started, I said, talking about the values that the companies, consumers are looking for companies that align with their own values. Ron was much more eloquent in his dissertation on that as well. I just wonder what's that tipping point? What's the balance between, product features, price, and then, they require people to be vaccinated, or though, they're not a vaccination company, or they contribute to environmental causes that I'm aligned with. I don't, what's that tipping point and what's the calculation that consumer is making? To me, that's the most interesting thing that's going on right now by far. Really, really interested to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Great. Understanding there's always going to be uncertainty. Can the panelists share one positive or personal professional victory that you would place under the back to idea?
I'll go. I think that the big positive is that it rewards people who have an adaptive nature, and it pushes people who didn't have an adaptive nature before to be more adaptive. I think that a nuanced mind and a flexible mind, I think, is one of the most powerful things to help people make decisions. I think that you can hold two opposing views at once. The people who do that tend to be most successful and most helpful to others, right? I think that this situation has forced people to have two things in their mind at once, which seemingly might be opposite from one another, right? If even I just use the word vaccination, I guarantee you, you can have people to have two things in their mind at once and talk about that. Closures, right? Two things in their mind. So I think that for me personally, the big positive is, one of human beings' greatest innate strengths is the ability to adapt their mind and to adjust and to be better than they were before because of it. So I think that's a huge positive. And I'm an optimist, so I'll just throw that out there.
I'd like to mention something, a couple of quick things. Number one, this has caused innovation on all levels from all companies in the most fundamental ways that they do business and interact with their consumers. And tangentially, I think, I don't have any data on this. I don't know. Ron probably is probably looking at this because he's much smarter than me, but I think this may be a golden era of entrepreneurship because of the people that are leaving companies that aren't aligned with their interests, that force them to go to the office they don't want to. And now they know they don't have to live in New York, LA, Chicago, to run a business that is considered serious in nature. You can live in Mishawaka, Indiana, and run a good business. So, and all of this comes about because of the remote nature of the work environment we've had for the last almost 2 years now. So I'm interested to see where new companies arise and the people that bring them to the forefront.
Love it.
Yeah, so Doug, so choice and convenience not only for the consumer, but for the employee.
Exactly.
Working at yeah, so it's a choice and convenience really across the board.
Absolutely.
Kind of open everybody's eyes have been opened in the last year and a half, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel that having to do things through Zoom, remote kind of conversations with clients and buyers and agencies and stuff like that, it's kind of made our relationships a little bit deeper because everybody has their little story of COVID. You see their kid in the background, you see the dog running around, you're having more personal conversations. I feel people are like a little more grounded at home, and it's been more open to ideas and stuff like that. So it's actually been a good experience. I think it's helped to kind of grow the relationships that we have.
I think that's a great point, Kevin. That's a great point. We're all a little bit more involved because we're all having a common experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are a lot more forgiving, right? Because you've got, your wife, girlfriend, or boyfriend in the background, banging in the kitchen. And before that would, be upsetting. And they really realize that's just the norm. That's just the norm. And so you do have a lot more forgiving and understanding of this is the environment we're working and adapting. I think with any challenge comes an opportunity, and it's not just the employees that are have that opportunity to be able to work. It's the companies can now we live in San Diego. I live in San Diego, and it's one of the most expensive places in the country to live. But I'm not relegated to that pool of talent. I now have the ability to hire just about anywhere, and have the same experience because we have the technology. We've proven that over the past 2 years that we can be effective and efficient over Zoom and what have you.
Right.
I've heard a lot of seen and heard a lot of kitchen renovations going on.
I love it. That was excellent. That's a positive note. I think that the recap, all those great ideas. I think that we've all been a little bit more human, and I think that a positive take out of this is how can we be the best humans we can be? Why not? Right? Why not? Why not?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, guys. I'm going to jump back in here since we're hitting 2:30. Lots and lots to think about, and that's why we have a series of these. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes as time goes on. And as Mark, you pointed out in the pre-call, John Yerington noted, if you don't like what's going on right now, just wait 2 weeks. Well, conveniently, these episodes are scheduled every 2 weeks. Our next opportunity to attend a live online Take 20 episode will be Wednesday, September 1st, 2 weeks from today, as we look at how kids getting back to school is affecting marketers, their businesses, their families and work environments, and more. Please visit thepdmi.com/take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend today. In addition, planning continues for the PDMI's first in-person event in 2 years, PDMI West at Hard Rock Hotel San Diego, home of California's best vaccination numbers by far, on October 4th through 6th. On Monday, we were thrilled to announce our keynote speaker for that event, Army veteran, burn survivor, and Dancing with the Stars champion, J.R. Martinez. You don't want to miss him. He's fantastic. Badges are selling briskly and hotel rooms are booking now. Don't miss out. Visit thepdmi.com/pdmi-west for more information and to register today. So once again, thank you guys. We really appreciate being here. Thank you to all the attendees. We appreciate you checking out this episode of Take 20. Enjoy the rest of the day, the rest of your work week. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.